Good evening, folks. This is Mary Hunt from the water community, and Patrice Rupp, who's my colleague, is here as well, handling the IT. And it's really good to see folks and to greet new people who join us each time. There are always new people. So if you are one of those, you are extremely welcome. And we're delighted that Brad Lutz will be handling our meditation input tonight. Last month, those of you who were with us will remember that Pamela Miller from Wesley Theological Seminary, who's doing her practicum at Water, helped us to focus on rest to achieve potential. Rest to achieve potential. And I hope you did that over the Thanksgiving holiday, that you could rest to achieve potential. And that was part of the idea of it. And you can revisit that session by going to our website, www.waterwomensalliance.org. Look under programs and water meditations, and there you will find, thanks to Pamela, the video of that presentation. I want to begin, as we always do, with a land acknowledgement. Here in Silver Spring, we're on the indigenous land of the traditional and contemporary land of the Piscataway and Anacostan peoples. And we acknowledge the trauma and injustice toward all indigenous persons that is so deep in American culture and history. We join in efforts to eradicate it and to make reparations for the genocide involved. Water's work is aimed in every instance to bring about social justice. Please consider for a moment the people on whose land you sit. And let their memory spur us to action. The water meditation format is quite simple, and we try to keep it that way so as to focus on the meditation itself. We have input from someone which lasts 7 or 8 minutes, and that sparks our contemplation. And then we spend 22 minutes in silence together. And what we do is I ring a gong. A gong has gone missing. That's really, I don't know where it went, but I took it home, brought it home in a bag, and it has never surfaced again. So I improvise with common household elements. And that signals the beginning of our meditation. And then when our meditation is over, I do the same thing. I ring the gong, as it were. And that signals that we have finished our 22 minutes together of silence. And there are lots of ways to meditate. You probably know by now what works best for you, and we don't prescribe a particular way. The main point is that we're doing it together. And we're also engaging in some conversation afterward. And the conversation probably is different because of the fact that we've taken the time to be together in silence than it would be if we just launched into discussion. I want to bring greetings tonight from Coralie Ling in Australia. Which is why I'm saying night, because I don't think anybody else who's on is from Australia or from the Southern Hemisphere. Unless if you are, raise your hand. I don't think you are. But she has a luncheon today with people she's been taking a class with. So she can't join us, but sent her very best wishes, especially for the holidays. And I also had a note from Mary Gallione, who said that she tonight is doing something different. She's texting for the elections in Georgia tomorrow. And I think that's just a great way of being. And I wish we were all doing that, or maybe we are doing that in a different way through our meditation. But she has to be remembered to the group. And I certainly think we can send some energies in that direction. So what I would ask you to do is mute your phone or your computer or whatever you're using tonight. Some people do this by phone. And then once we finish the quiet time together, you'll be invited, of course, to unmute as you wish to speak. And we'll bring that to your attention at the time. So I want to introduce or reintroduce Brad Lutz, who's a retired United Church of Christ minister who lives with his husband in Florida. He has kept us apprised as he learns how to be retired. And I have found that very useful to think about being retired and what it means to learn how to do that. He has made clear, I think, at least to me, that it's not the easiest job in the world to be retired. But tonight he's going to explore waiting And we can be sure it's a well-distilled thought and the fruit of many years of pastoral wisdom. So welcome to you, Brad, and the mic is now yours. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. And I want to begin by saying how much these monthly meditations nourish me, and both the presenters and the conversation that follows. I look forward to it every month, and when occasionally I have to miss, I really regret it, because it leaves an empty space in the month for me. So I do want to reflect about waiting this evening, and this has come about because I spent the first half, at least the first half of 2022, waiting, and it wasn't pretty. I waited for cardiology to clear me to have a hip replacement. And the waiting was filled with a lot of pain and immobility and anxiety. And I have to admit that occasionally there was some deliberate swearing. Now that usually occurred when my daily engagement with the Bible reminded me to wait expectantly. And my impatience in waiting resonated a lot more fully with Psalm 69, where it says, "I'm tired of crying, my throat is hoarse, my eyes are exhausted with waiting." So that was much more my experience for most of these 6 months at the beginning of this year. Waiting is unpopular, and I think for most people it's considered a waste of time. Nobody enjoys sitting in a waiting room. You can catch up on a few magazines, which I find usually to be terribly out of date, and then you start to get antsy. And I start to then think unkind thoughts about whoever I'm waiting for. But then I've learned during this year to consider that maybe times of waiting are really invitations to grow in mind and spirit. And what if I can learn to not rush things and instead be open to what can be learned while I'm in life's waiting rooms? My spiritual director, who lives in Wisconsin, Reverend Holly Whitcomb, wrote a book called The 7 Spiritual Gifts of Waiting. And in that, she says this about the season of Advent. Advent invites us to embrace the spiritual discipline of waiting. The season of Advent will not be rushed. The Advent carols must be sung. The Advent candles must be lighted week by week, and the doors of the Advent calendar must be opened day by day. Christmas will finally come when all the expectant scriptures have been read and when the baby has finally been born. Holly sees Advent waiting as something that cuts against the cultural grain of our times, because we all expect, I think if we're honest, instant satisfaction. And I find that's even true in the spiritual life. People expect instant gratification. But the truth is that the divine is not going to be rushed. As Pierre Teilhard de Chardin advised us, we need to trust in the slow work of God. During my months of waiting, the slow work of God became very evident to me. And long story short, it provided me with fresh insight into those questions that my transition to retirement had raised. Waiting and pain had emptied me, but it made me ready, and it opened the door to spiritual transformation. And the result, despite all the physical discomfort I had, was serenity and acceptance and an intense consciousness of life's abundant blessings in a landscape that I had considered to be utterly barren. There's a German poet, if you would put up the poem, Patrice, I would appreciate it. The poet Vic Lejean, I think, captures what I experienced in my prolonged waiting. It's called "Life Will Bloom When It Is Ready." I keep pulling on my roots, urging them to grow, impatient for the bloom and the sunshine and the growth. But it doesn't work like that. Tears flow, soil drenches and dries. There have to be some slower days, some rainfall, even snow. Life will bloom when it's ready. I love that thought. And it was a poem that I discovered that helped me to wait with an open heart. So as we enter into the time of contemplative silence tonight and reflection together, if you observe Advent, I invite you to consider these questions. And if you don't, I just invite you to consider the times of waiting that you experience and how they affect your life. How do these words by the poet speak to your experience of waiting? What are you waiting for now? What does your waiting offer to you? May your meditation and mine open doors tonight to transformation and blessing. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you very much, Brad. A beautiful start and a moving one and a full one. Let us now join in 22 minutes of communal silence. Thanks to all of you for participating in this time of silence, and a particular thanks to Brad for the lovely reflection that moved us into the silence. I really appreciated it, Brad, both your sharing and the poem, and of course the image, which I like so much.